Tiny little camera. Okay, so hi everybody. My name's Orta the Rocks.
I'm Matt Dole.
We're both engineers-ish at Artsy. We're here at the CocoaPods Peer Lab in New York City, and we're actually going to try and build out a web service, ideally in a reasonable amount of time, that we can maybe even just do all of that today.
Yeah, let's try it out.
So I'll explain the problem. There's this website CocoaPods.org, and we have this kind of search engine where you can do a search and it'll give you a list of every single pod that's available, and that's just pretty normal for a dependency manager. But what we do pretty cool is we allow you to expand it, and you get a better understanding of the actual library without having to jump through different places. So this is really useful when you're comparing multiple things together, and you can just like see what's all there. The trade-off of this is that, I built this 5 years ago with it running entirely on a hosted Mac Mini, and running your own servers is a ton of effort. And when you combine that with running your own Mac server, that's a double ton of effort.
Yeah.
So I had to maintain I had to write all these rake files that would make it easy to restart the server, start the server back up after the computer restarted. And in an ideal world, I'm going to take some of the responsibilities from that Mac, and I'm going to move those responsibilities into a hosted Heroku service.
Cool.
That means I don't have to maintain any of the actual server itself. That's on Heroku, and I'm going to try and move as much as possible to that, so that I have to do less work. And it also gives us a new project in the CocoaPods repos. So I'm gonna just try and get started. I've made some pretty serious notes in notational velocity. That's the things that we're gonna try and get through. So the first thing we're gonna do is just set up a simple proof of concept node server. And with all of the fancy tooling that I just can't work without nowadays. Then we're gonna set up, accessing the GitHub API. Then we're gonna start. First, I think we're gonna start with just getting the README, and once we're gonna try and get all the way through the process just for that README, and then we'll just start expanding on it and getting it to a point where it's a production service. So we're gonna start a new node project. So the first thing I always do is jump to a developer folder for projects of CocoaPods. Gonna make a new folder, so it's gonna be called CocoaPods
server migration.
Not that one. It's not optimal. This site metadata is also a terrible name too. For now, let's just call it dcocodocs, and later on I can think of a better name. So CocoaPods dcocodocs. We're gonna create a new node project. So the first thing you do is make a package.json. So in that case, I'm just going to do yarn init, which will actually do a lot of this for me. So I'm going to make this big. Doesn't require much. So it's what is the name of your project? What's its version? It's going to be 0.0.0 because we'll never need to ship a version. A web server for CocoaPods stats. The entry point, so when you run this, what should it call? What should be index.js is fine. Repo, I haven't decided yet, so that's fine. Also, the author, it's going to be Orta plus Matt. Oh, unlucky. License always MIT. Private, true. Just means that you can't ship it by accident.
Yep.
And all that's done is it's created a package.json in the root of your folder. Nothing else. And that is just a little JSON blob that describes the project. Okay, so next up, in fact, if we split this to be something like that, and we get that, and split that to be something like this, it gives us a good idea of what we need to add next. So I want to add TypeScript, I want to add TS-Lint, I want to add Prettier, Jest, and TS-Jest. Wallaby I don't need to do anything for. Husky I need to do. There's Lint staged. I know I'm going to need Express because that's what we're going to build the server in. I'm going to need the types for Node. I'm going to need the types for Express. I'm going to need the types for Jest. And this is because JavaScript has no types, and it's just tough to work with. But the moment that you start mapping out what it looks like, then suddenly everything becomes a joy. That might be all those. So Jan's going to go and grab all those packages. And then we'll discover how many dependencies that has added to our tree pretty soon.
What, like 15,000? Is that what we're working with?
I'm going to guess that it's like somewhere in the range of 400 or 500.
All right.
But it might not be. But it might be. We can. I used to know how to be able to check this sort of thing. Oh, there we go. Bam.
500 right on the nose.
557. Okay. So we've added a bunch of this. We've added a bunch of dependencies to our app. So now I'm going to open up in here. So I use Visual Studio's Code for everything because it's just a really well-made text editor. We're going to start needing to add prettier settings in here, and jest settings in here, and lint stage settings in here. So prettier is, I'm just going to cheat because I keep these around everywhere. Prettier formats anything. It'll format your Markdown, your JSON, your JavaScript, your TypeScript, your GraphQL, your whatever. Like almost everything that you end up putting into a project like this, it will format it for you, and you don't do anything yourself.
Nice.
So it gets rid of an entire suite of things to care about. Jest is like easily the best like testing runner I've ever seen. So it doesn't like by default support TypeScript. What we're doing here is we're saying whenever you see a TS and this question mark means that this X may be missing, then send that file first over to a module called tsjest. And then it says anytime you see a file that's .test, .ts, or tsx, then that is a file that you should class as a test. And that's all the config that we need for that. Then I add lint staged. So lint staged is when you're about to commit a file to Git or to push it. These are probably all commits. We'll have to edit scripts in a second to add it. Then if it's a JSON file, it'll run prettier. If it's a TypeScript file, it'll run prettier and then tslint. If it's a test file, it'll run jest with an update command. So if you've got snapshots, then they'll change. And Markdowns will also get prettier too.
Nice. You have a blog post on all this too, don't you?
Because all this
Further
stuff is
suggested reading?
Yeah, man. Suggested reading, the artsy blog. All of it. I feel like I have to add okay, so that's generally enough to get started. Okay, prettier has been added to the project, so we're good. So I'm going to make a folder called source, which tends to be how I like to handle this stuff. And we're going to need, let's give ourselves an index.ts. And we're going to have to set up TypeScript because right now there's no TypeScript config setup. So I can go into here and I do yarn tsc. When we added TypeScript as a dependency, tsc was added to like the dependency thing. It's easier to show than to explain. Adding a dependency adds all these commands that you can optionally use, like prettier or watch, whatever that does.
Or
uglify JS, yeah. There's tslint, which is we care about. There's jest, which we care about. And there's tsc, which we care about. So when I say yarn tsc, what it's saying is go look in my node modules, pick out TypeScript, which will be locked to the version that I requested, and use that. So I'm pretty sure it's -- in it. Yes. Okay.
Nice.
So that's just created a tsconfig file in here, which gives you all the options. We don't necessarily need all the options, but we do need to state something like files. No, let's go look at perils. That's always the best example for all this stuff. So I'm just pulling up another node app that I have, because it also uses Express, and we're probably going to come and copy and paste some of this code too. tsconfig. Okay. So it excludes a bunch of files. It says there's a root directory, so that's probably what we want. So I can kill almost all of these settings. You found it? Great. There we go. So let's reduce this down to its bare essentials. I don't know much about this ES It's a new option, so I can live without it because I don't know what it is. Kill this, and there we go. That's like strict true because I know what I'm doing. Root directories of source, and that should be good. We can verify this by going yarn tsc, which is going to run our compiler, which should create a JavaScript file right next to it.
Nice.
Which is good, but not actually what I want. So you're going to do that, and we need one more, which I think is out. Yeah, out directory, and we'll just call it dist. So if we do that one more time, should create a folder in our root called dist, and my mouse is taking longer than it would normally. And it should be there, and that should just include the index.js, and that should correspond to those. So,
all right,
cool. So that's that. Next up is going to be to git ignore this stuff, because no one wants this. So node modules and dist. So that should make them fade out a little bit in here if I've typed everything right. Git ignore. That's spelled right?
you got it right. Yeah.
I spelled all those right. Okay. A little bit suspicious.
Do you need a format to get ignore at all?
Nah. I mean, there is one, but like in this case, this should be enough.
Okay.
We're also gonna make a VS Code folder with a settings.json, and this one's just gonna be to make it auto format. Settings. You can tell when something's wrong because autocomplete doesn't work like you expect. Format on save. Perfect. Cool. So this just means that when I have my TypeScript file, I can do something like const a equals make it look really bad, and then it automatically fixes all that for me. So that's great. So we've got TypeScript set up, we've got Prettier set up, we haven't verified jest works as expected, but we'll do that next. We set up our node modules, and we set up TypeScript to do the compilation as we'd want.
All right.
It's not a git. It's not a git. So if I create it, then we'll actually see that now they're like disappeared like I expected them to be.
Nice. Okay.
So next up then is, what did I say next up was?
You got your list, don't you?
Yeah, I do have my list. So we added Prettier, we added jest. Right. We need to verify that tests work. So I'm gonna make an underscore tests folder. And it's gonna have an index.test.ts. And this will have a simple test, so it should be like describe works. Make it do a function, and it adds, and we do a function here that goes expect 1 to equal 1. Great. Okay. So that works, I bet, if we type yarn jest. Great. It broke. So what have we got here? The root dir in the transform option was not found. Is it possible that I didn't add tsjest, or that tsjest has changed since I copied and pasted that? I added tsjest. Ooh, debugging time. So let's go look inside tsjest source code first. Yes. Cool. Take a quick look at their README in case there's anything. Huh. There we go. It's even easier. You just send it directly to tsjest. So I can kill that. I can simplify this. There we go. And pretty automatically formatted in my JSON.
Delightful.
I know, right? Okay. Found the file, ran the test. That's great. One more thing. I built a really nice extension to automatically run your jest test for you. And then it turned out that if I just paid $99 a year, someone else does one way better. So I just use theirs completely. It's so good. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to try and copy it down and make it run on theirs. So this is what we need. We send that along, send everything but source test.tsrx. Yeah, that's legit. We don't need to run Babel. Okay, so the weird thing here is that we've literally replicated a bunch of the work that was in that Jest settings, but it's like, I can live with this because the value it provides is so good in exchange for a little bit of complexity. And the only people that get it are the people that have paid. So I see the extra complexity, but no one else gets the value. So I'm just going to verify that everything works. All right, so this is great. It found one test. We can validate this by looking in here, and we start to see all this stuff. So this is what's really cool here is I can make a change. In real time, it'll automatically update all my tests.
That's nice.
Yeah, exactly. So so it's worth having that one file in there so that people that super care can do this.
Yeah.
Okay, one more thing that we haven't done, which is TS-Lint. I don't know if TS-Lint has an auto generator. I'll have a quick look. Like an init. Yes, it does. Okay, so what is its defaults? Recommended, errors, and then some stuff. Okay, so I can probably live with this. I've made enough changes to my dev setup now that I'm gonna restart VS Code because everything will be hooked up now.
Right.
I'm sure some things can handle it at runtime, but I know as someone who's built complex extensions that sometimes it just doesn't. Okay, so that looks like all the pieces are working. Look, oh, don't you dare. Missing semicolons. Nope. I find that really unreasonable. So we're just gonna do a quick ts-lint prettier is what we use everywhere at Artsy. It's just config that says let prettier handle all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because prettier should be handling all this stuff, and then we just need config prettier at the end of our thing here. So it says take the recommended one and then take prettier's config one. Cool. Maybe gonna assume that they can figure it out at runtime. They can figure it out at runtime. Perfect. Okay, great. So we have working tests. We have working linters. We have working compilers. We have the libraries that we need to make stuff done initially. And everything looks good for the pieces that we'll need in order to work. So I'm gonna make a README, and that's gonna be it for now. We'll just leave it blank. Let's make a commit. So git ignore VS Code source. Yep, these are all the right pieces. If we don't have a name for it, there's no point trying to be too fancy. Okay, so that is blank slate. We're now at a good place. Okay, so let me explain to you a little bit about what we need to do to actually do this. We're going to use Express, which is a very small, a very simple server, and we're going to receive webhooks. So that's when one server says to another, I've got some information from you, and that information will come from CocoaPods trunk. So if we do this and we do this, we can actually have a look at what CocoaPods trunk sends, because I don't actually remember. So we're going to load up trunk and take a look inside the code. I feel like it's hooks controller maybe. Okay, so that's a receive. So that's when it gets one, so now it's not what we're looking for. Is it API? Nope, not there either. Almost close enough to think it's worth grabbing a copy of the code and looking locally. Okay, we're going to do that. That's not hard because I already have a copy of it. I bet it's in CocoaPods trunk, there it is. No, wait, that's not it. That's the command line version of it. What would that be in? It would be in Rainforest Strata. That's the one. Trunk.cocoapods.org. Perfect. Alright, let's open this up. So I want to look for webhooks. So on a pod version, it sends a webhook via a thing called webhook. So we need to find a class called webhook, which is called webhook.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you spell explanation?
Yeah. No. Wait. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Okay. I'm really bad with stuff like that. Right. What's going on here? That could be the data that it sends. Yeah, that might be it. Okay. Okay, that's enough. So we're gonna get a webhook that looks like this into our server. That's gonna give us the name of the pod, the version, and the data URL.
Yeah.
So the data URL will probably look something like it'll look like what's an easy way to get to one? Pod / Apollo, sure. If you go down to see pod spec, the data URL will be this. So it would be like the raw page of this. So we'll have to pull this JSON in to actually have an understanding of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fine. So first thing I tend to try and do nowadays with this kind of thing is map it out in types. So I know I'm probably going to eventually need a webhook. Trunk webhook. And these are all the things that are going to come in. So okay, so I've just said that, like, that's the worst rule. Let's go into Peril, because Peril definitely has this. There's like one of the defaults for linting is that you would always. Oh yeah, that's annoying too. That's good. Thanks past me. Rules. Cool. Right. You're allowed to make interfaces that do not begin with I now. So that's what this stuff's gonna look like when it comes in.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna start looking at how to build a web server in Express. So the structure of how you build these is kind of interesting. I know from writing tests about these that you actually want two different files for this. You want a server.ts and then you want the index. Mm-hmm. You can see it in Peril when you look at the index, where it actually just runs the Peril command. You want to create this app, and then later on you want to serve it. So you want to separate the creation from the starting of it, so that you can write tests against the app before it's been started, so then every test it doesn't start running up your server.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm just gonna straight up copy and paste some code. So we're gonna need Express. We're going to need to create Express. I think this is reasonable too, because we're going to need to set the port anyway. We can make this export const app and make it like that. If I add one more, then it'll put it on the right line if it's prettier, so we should definitely do that. We're going to need something like this. Perfect. Okay. Is that enough? Great. So we're going to need... So what this sets up is a web server on the port 5000 by default, or if someone tells me the port, then we'll use that. And it says listen out for a post on /webhook. Okay, and webhook here is going to have to be a function that we can handle in a second. So I'm just going to, again, copy my types, because that's the right way to do all this. The webhook here that's the webhook that comes in. This is going to be the actual function that does the work. Let's just call it trunk webhook. It's going to have to be exported so that it can be pulled in somewhere else. Express is going to be included at the top. Okay. Alright, it's not going to be happy that there's a console, whatever. I can... Perfect. Okay, so what we've done so far is we've created a server file that exports webhook. This is actually going to now be called trunk webhook, and it automatically imported it because VS Code and TypeScript are great like that. And it's going to load the server, and there's going to be a registering for a post for /webhook. Make sense?
Yep.
Cool. This is going to be exported as an app, but it's not going to do anything yet. So the root is going to import it. So what is it called? App. Cool. Takes the app from the external thing, and it does listen. Is it listen? It is listen. Cool. Maybe I'm just going to cheat and see what... Built all this before.
Right.
You need to tell it the port, and in this case I just have it echo out what the
Right. Yeah.
what the URL is so that you can do something with it. So get the support, does a log. You can do console.info. Cool. Says the port. We can actually do this instead down here. Okay. Wait, that's our server. We're gonna tell package what to do. So there's a thing called start. Nope. There's a thing called scripts, which is like commands that you will run. Start is usually a default. That's like how to start your project.
Yeah.
We go to dist and we run index.js, right? So it takes the source that would be over here, and it would run this code.
Yep.
Most people write like test in here too, and that just says jest. I still just write yarn jest, but consistency is important. There is the webhook stuff. So if we just go to package.json in here, we can have a look at my scripts here. A little bit more complicated, but not unreasonable. So I think yarn build makes a lot of sense too. That just says run TypeScript, so then people know how to do it without having to, be a master of all this stuff. Right, post install we don't care about today, but we do care about pre-commit. Oh, and pre-push, run jest. Great. So why not just run all your tests every time you push? I'm good
So just
for
every
that.
time you do a get commit, it'll build automatically, and then every time you push, it'll run the tests first.
It'll run the tests first, and then when you push, it will run all the tests before pushing your commit up.
Right. Yeah.
So it will, by default now, it'll run just the tests that have changed when you commit them, and then when you but it'll also and then when you push it, it'll run all the tests.
Okay.
So it gives you a real like comprehensive coverage of knowing that you haven't screwed up too easily, which is really cool when you've got so many simple automated things. So yarn build is right. Yep. Okay. So we can verify this by doing yarn build. So that's taking our code and moving it into the dist folder. That's the wrong one. So this. So now our dist has stuff, including our tests, which isn't optimal, but I mean, no one cares right now. Index just imports the server and listens. And server just creates an express and sets up the webhook. The webhook will say hi if you send a post to /webhook. So we can give it a run. We need to. All right, let's do it the other way. It was complaining that this is not an executable, which is true. It needs a flag for it. So if we just tell it to run in Node, then okay.
Nice.
So it started something on port 5000. I'm gonna make this bigger and split it. Can't remember how to do curl manually. I do have something that's a bit like curl. Yeah. No. Cautious of. Cool. That's not a secret, so that's fine. Like API, is that a thing I've got? What can I do to send a post request? Have I got paw installed? No.
I got nothing.
I got nothing. Alright, let's just quickly Google curl. send post. All right. Okay. That's good. Perfect. Thanks. We don't have to send any data. That looks like what we want. There we go. So split this. Make it bigger. Curl x post. That's going to be HTTP. And it's localhost 5000 / webhook. And there we go. It said hi in our console, like
Great.
it should have done in there. Perfect. Okay. Let's write a test or two to cover this, and then we'll call this our first like checkpoint and pause recording for a second. Make sense?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Cool. We need to write tests for this. So when we think about what is actually changing in this setup, I think the only real work here is actually this right now, which is setting up an app and then actually running the trunk webhook.
Right.
I'm not too worried about like validating the logic inside this because realistically today there's no logic inside it.
Yeah.
But this I think is worth having a test for. So server.test.ts. We're going to import it. So import what was it called? Trunk server? Trunk webhook. Cool. So we're also going to need server. So that's called app. We're probably going to mock this out so that we can verify that if we send... we'll see how this goes. It sets up the trunk webhook to run on /webhook. Seems reasonable enough for me. I don't know exactly how to verify this, but hopefully the types should tell us. So I'm going to import app. So test app equals app. Right, so now we can verify what this is. We're going to do app dot, and I'm hoping there's like a list of roots. Yes. Okay, so let's see what's actually in this. It's not a function. Cool. So expect app.roots dot equal, and then we make it nothing. Okay, so we got some expected object, but got something else. So if we click on this, we can have a look. No. Okay, so I wonder what that does. So let's just quickly follow through with this, see what we can see. So it definitely has this, and it definitely has this. What other things are inside app? So there's resources, there's a router. Subject may be used for introspection. That's exactly what I want it for. Your application may also remove roots by doing that. So that's in my head that should work, but obviously it's not in my head.
Right.
We could. All right. When we're stuck in times like these, it's time to start throwing a debugger here and there. Okay, so this should, but it might not, because I turned off my jest support. Okay, there we go. Let's make this full screen. We'll need more. We got more tabs going on. What are you telling me? Okay, great. So we want to understand test app. So it's got some events, it's got a router in it, it's got all... what does this do? No, that's not useful to us at all. Okay, so this should be, yeah, it's the same thing as that. Alright, so what do we see inside here? There's a length, sure. There's a mount point, sure. That thing that we were looking at isn't even there at all.
Routes? No, it doesn't look like it. What is the difference between route and routes?
Good question. I'm not really sure.
What is it? Because route is down here.
So that's a function. Yeah. So It's an interesting question. Should we try it? So test app dot root. Such a webhook. Like, what does that tell us? No, maybe nothing.
Doesn't really look like anything.
All right. Okay. How do I test a root in Express? There you go, people. Even people with many years still happily doing it this way. Okay, the canonical way is through supertest, which I don't know what that is. I see. This is like a real test. So this is actually this is actually loading the server up, sending a request, and then waiting for the response for it, and then verifying that that does what you want, which does make sense. But as they say here, that's an integration test, and I want a unit test right now. This shouldn't be too hard, right?
What's that first answer up there?
So that says, so this is change your response object, and it will work. I'm not sure. I feel like they're doing the same thing, which is, what's roots? That takes its roots and it looks for an index with a response and a request. I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, I'm not sure that's, like, I don't want to be doing this tests yet. Yeah. Like, if you specifically want to test your roots object, which we kind of do, but that's also different. That seems to imply that you can run a .index on it, which this could just be. So that doesn't have any of that kind of stuff. It could be that we have to we have to start listening, which I don't necessarily want to do, but it still doesn't have a roots. Where did that even come from?
I do not know.
All right, let's look at the express types. It doesn't say it exists. Where did we even find that?
That is a mystery then.
Application.roots. The app.roots. It just seems so perfect to be useful for testing. I wonder what report does too. Let's have a look at that. See, we were so close to being able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, nope, you're not meant to be running that then. Okay, let's see if we got any other examples. How does one... Okay. Right, app.use. I don't know what the difference between use and the one that we've got is, but this is also sending a real request because they also listen in the same one. So this again, which is almost starting to feel like is the only option. It looks like no one else thinks to split up these. The running the server. Yeah, this is the same. You create the server, and then they test it by running a real web request against it.
Yeah.
Is this just how you do it in this? Same thing. Require the full thing. Something about it's a root. Full mounts and app.use, root.get. This looks reasonable. They create it, they run super test. Yeah, they're doing the same thing, which is like creating it, listening to it, sending a HTTP request. Yeah, there they are, and verifying that it works. It makes sense, but it doesn't. It feels weird to me, man.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I feel like I'll try one more look, and if it doesn't, we'll see if this express for one works. App.use. So that one doesn't have the listen. So they have a get users, yep, and they export it. Okay, so This is also a pretty good way of testing things. This is how I do it in parallel. I never specifically tested that the root does what I expect because I just tested it at the function level.
Right.
So if we think about like, let's kill this. So what's happening is those tests are doing this. They're just validating that if they pass these things into this function in the correct order, then it will do what you expect.
Right.
But it seems like everyone only wants to run the web server and validate that you can send it the details and you get the right answer.
Okay.
It's a little bit depressing because to me that runs the full query. Like, I mean, it's a full integration test, and I just wanted to verify. I wanted to verify that parameter that it's hooked up, not that it goes from start to finish correctly.
Right. You're trying to break it down into smaller tests, true unit tests.
Yes, that would be a true unit test. But for now, we're just gonna skip it. Hey, and it's green again. Okay.
That works.
So let's take this as a good break. I'm gonna add a commit. Yep, cool. And webhook root. That's about it. Yep, sure. And we're good. All right, people. This was our first one, which I've got no idea how long it was. 41 minutes. And we'll start back again in a bit. Ciao.